Hello everyone. Today we are here at our farm. I'm vlogging and I'm going to answer your questions in the comment section. Today is a Q&A. So yeah, we're just going to start. Number one question from Mr. Lord Kelvin02. What was the worst experience you had when you were an agent at a call center? The worst experience I had when I was an agent was when I worked for an account that was undergoing a bankruptcy process. And 90% of the customers who were calling were demanding for their refund. And all we could say was that the company was undergoing a restructuring process. Restructuring process being the positive scripting for bankruptcy. We just couldn't say the word bankruptcy. If the customer asks, what do you mean? Are you guys going bankrupt? All we could say is restructuring process. If they would like to get their refund, just call this number, which is, I think that was a government number. I never knew if they were able to get their refund, but I say that that was the worst experience I had as an agent because that went on for 4 weeks, telling customers that they could not get their refund, but in a positive sort of way. It was so obvious to the agents, to the customers that the company was going bankrupt. Give me an irate customer anytime with a clear resolution and I would solve it. But if I get customers with dead-end scenarios, no resolution, even if they're friendly at the very start of the call, that just sucks. Me and my friend are currently having our training. How are we going to survive in this industry? We realize it's not that easy. Grab a partner, hopefully a tenured one, someone who has experience, and just play out a mock call scenario with him or her. You take turns asking as the agent and as the customer, and then you act out a specific issue. When you catch your partner committing an error or missing a step that she should be following during the call, for example, customer received a damaged item, but she did not ask for a photo, then you gotta have to stop the mock call and tell her, hey, you did not ask for a photo, you're supposed to ask for a photo. And then you start the mock call all over again until you perfect it. So that when your nesting starts, you're not gonna be as challenged with the process because it's already in your head. You've already exercised that in a mock call. I think that would just really help you. Another important thing that you should be doing is to memorize the call flow, so you know what to do first, next, so you have a sense of direction. Number 3 from Jason Calio 5718. What was your most memorable experience in the BPO industry, and what is the most embarrassing moment? My most memorable and most embarrassing moment is one and the same, and that was my first day of taking calls. So the issue of that customer was really nothing new. It was just like one of those common ones. She was asking about the status of her order. The tracking number has been generated, but it hasn't been moving. Like, she thought it was stuck in transit, but it was just within the normal time frame. She just didn't know the process. So all I had to do was tell her this is normal because of this and because of that. But it was just one of my very first calls on that very first day, and the anxiety was real. It was just hard to compose the answer in a sort of customer service way. And she thought that because she could barely understand my English, she thought that I was French Canadian, so we could just maybe speak French. Of course, I couldn't speak French. And she asked, oh, so you're in Manila. I don't speak Tagalog. So that was really awful for me. If not for that other agent, my seatmate, AD, I wouldn't have been able to help that customer. Actually, I did not help the customer. AD helped the customer and told her that I was new. AD managed to turn it around, and they were laughing at the end of the call, which I was really surprised at the time, because when I transferred the call to him, the customer was quite irate and annoyed and just wanted the supervisor. AD, by the way, was not the supervisor. He was just an agent like me. At that time, the supervisors were so busy because we were the pioneers of that account, and supervisors were assisting agents front, left, and center, and they were so occupied So I just had to grab AD, who was a tenured rep, to help me handle this customer and act as my supervisor, which he did perfectly and flawlessly. I'm saying that that was the most memorable because prior to that moment, I thought that I had a pretty good grasp of the English language, only to find out that no, not really. I was just imagining it. When I was in high school, in elementary, I was getting the best in English award. So I kind of had that confidence, that confidence that, oh my God, I'm fine. I can speak better English. But no, that was really embarrassing, especially to myself. Like I had to recalibrate my knowledge that I was not really good at speaking English. But you know, while it was really embarrassing and unpleasant, that experience pushed me to try to improve my English, my accent, my confidence. It's one of the experiences I had that really pushed me to want to improve more. In your opinion, what is the best call center company you can recommend to tenured folks to apply? So I haven't worked for a lot of BPO companies. I could not really recommend with full confidence a company because after all, no company is perfect. You know, there will always be problems. There will always be disadvantages. So let me just tell you the companies I worked for. When I was 19, 20 years old, I worked for 611 Global Services in Davao. I think they're still around. The pay at the time was already better, like 2.5, 3 times better than the pay I was receiving when working in a mall. I was a chat support representative. It was okay, you know, that was my very first company. I think it helped that I was a chat support representative first because I wouldn't want to take calls as a newbie. And then after that, I resigned. I worked in Offsourcing Philippines. It doesn't have the same name anymore. I think it's OS something, OS. And that company is a little better than 611, higher paying, but I had to also take calls. That was when I had my most embarrassing moment as an agent. But you know, I love the company. I love also the account I worked for. I would actually recommend that, but I don't know if you can find that company in other parts of the Philippines. I'm not sure if they have branches outside Davao. But yeah, I love that. I like the company. It's quite decent. After that, we transferred to another company, which is quite tiny. It was formed because the account from Offsourcing wanted to create its own call center company. So they created their own company and that was it. And then it was time for me to move to Cebu. And I Converges, I experienced being a trainee, but then I quit after the training. If you heard of ePerformax Cebu, I think that's the company I could recommend in that they offer free training to employees who want to learn new skills. For example, they have this free training on public speaking. I can't recall the other ones, but they include public speaking and leadership training. Quite an excellent way of trying to improve your employees. Based on your experience, what is the most difficult challenge you've faced in your profession? Generally, that's when I face dead-end scenarios. When all you can do is to comfort the customer with your words because no amount of resolution will be able to help her. I really hate that, especially when the customer is friendly at the very start of the call because I know for sure that if she's not gonna get hysterical, she's at least gonna get disappointed, just not pleasant at the end of the call. I prefer that the sequence of my customer's emotions starts with being irate to friendly and happy, instead of friendly and happy to disappointed, irate, hysterical. I just don't like to end calls like that when the customer is just not happy at the end of the call. So I would say that the most difficult challenge I faced was facing dead-end scenarios when you know right after hearing the customer's problem that you're not going to be able to do anything for her. And all you can do is positive scripting, but that can only do so much, you know. What kind of questions should I try to ask my trainee in the future when I start training? The hard questions. Of course, you don't want to be asking questions that you can find in the training materials, that you can ask your co-trainees. Gotta ask the hardest questions. What I suggest is you make a list of questions that you're really having a hard time finding the answers to. Talk to your co-trainees first. See if they know the answer to your question so you don't have to ask your trainer about it. In the event that they also cannot answer your question, then that is the time to ask your team lead. And the good thing about that is you're not just asking as an individual, you're asking as a group because they also don't know. They call that asking the smart questions, but I think it's really just about taking as little as possible of your trainer's time because there's only one of him or her and there's a lot of you. So you got to be self-sufficient. It's not like an elementary or high school class where the information are spoon-fed. It's not going to be like that. It's more about they're going to give you the general information and then you're going to figure out the answers to the questions, and those ones you cannot answer, you're going to have to ask them. We're going to cut it short for now because it's going to rain and we're going to continue tomorrow.